A tight rivalry game at NC State turned into a blowout thanks to a decisive 15-2 run for the Tar Heels. How did it happen? These Tar Heels are figuring out who they are. Roll definition, baby!
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, it's Thursday, January 11th, 2024. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Shade, and I want to thank you so much for joining us to get your Tar Heels content every day. In particular, I want to say hey and good morning to you every day. We're so glad you're here. If you're new to the show, that's okay too. I would encourage you to come join the Locked On Tar Heels Discord where we're talking Carolina all the time. We have a live game thread that's going on during games. It was insane on Wednesday night. Hundreds of messages, and it's just a good, healthy place to be. I want to share something with you from the Locked On Tar Heels Discord. This came from Ghost Wolf, who said, this was after the game on Wednesday night. I love following along with this group. Everyone seems like genuine good people, all enjoying it with lots of heart, but never acting crazy. It's a nice atmosphere. And so, man, it's true. We're really cultivating a neat community there. Would love to have you as part of it. The link is in the show notes. All right, this episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Love that. By the way, for those of you tuning in on YouTube, I want to say a massive word of thanks. We are less than 50 subscribers away from 7,000. That's bonkers to me. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, I'd love for you to go do that. If you would take just a second, it would mean so much. If you missed our live post-game reaction show last night, it was a late one. It was like after dark version of Locked On Tar Heels, but it was a great time. Getting a lot of good feedback on those, so we're going to start doing that regularly. So come on in. We'll do it right after Syracuse game ends on Saturday. If you're enjoying those post games, those live post games, would you let me know? Just trying to kind of get the lay of the land with that. All right, show overview. Where are we headed today? You know, we got our four corners recap. We got our shady stat of the game, a couple odds and ends to talk through, but I want to talk about how this is coming together, why I think Carolina is, something we haven't talked about yet, of why I think Carolina is able to do what they're doing. They get this win 67-54 over NC State on Wednesday night. I don't know about you, but I just take sweet delight in winning this rivalry game. And I know some are going to push back against the word rivalry, specifically because it's lopsided and Carolina just wins a ton in this series. And so just by definition, some people would not define it as rivalry, but I would give it that moniker more because of the intense love for battling each other and the kind of disdain and distaste between these two schools. So that's why. But here's why I love this, is because it's one thing if NC State is not that good and you go in and beat them. But this is a game where, because both teams were 3-0 in ACC play, because it was a game for first place, sole possession of first place in the ACC, there was hope in the faces and hearts and minds of NC State. And the Tar Heels just went in and ripped it right out. That hope is gone. It's one thing to beat State when they're down. It's a whole other thing to steal their joy on their own floor, in their own arena. And you saw moments when it would leave their eyes. Here was a great moment like that to me. There was 15:30 left in the game in the second half. Carolina was up by 2 at this point. I believe this was when Armando Bacot had already checked out with his third foul. DJ Burns gets kind of a bunny. I can't remember if this was when Jalen Washington was on him or if Carolina had already gone to Jalen Withers at that point. But Burns misses a bunny, kind of mopes about it, like if you're watching me, you're seeing what I'm doing, what he's doing. He's going back up the court kind of slow, just head in his hands, frustrated with himself, couldn't believe he missed it. Meanwhile, you know what Carolina's doing? They're running it right up his back. So keep moping about it, DJ. That's great. Meanwhile, here comes RJ Davis And Kevin Keats is halfway out on the court, waving DJ Burns along, trying to implore him to get back in the action. Too late. RJ Davis hits a transition three. Carolina's back up 5-38-33. It's moments like that that just rip out that hope and that joy in your soul that NC State thought they had. Tar Heels just keep doing it. What is making that happen? Well, for me, one of the biggest things is the Tar Heels have role definition. We have been begging for this. We have been pleading it for the first 2 years of the Coach Davis era. The substitution patterns were all over the place. Guys couldn't lock in on, when am I getting in? How long will I play? All of that stuff. That's been one of the biggest concerns. But they are finally getting it sorted out. Players are starting to know and understand and most importantly, embrace their roles. Jalen Withers, man, I really think over the past 2, 3, 4 games, he's been settling into what Carolina needs him to do. Be this athletic dude that can get up, get rebounds, dunk a few shots, make some free throws, whatever it is, give activity and energy. Jalen Withers is getting there. Part of why the role definition works is because the coaching staff was so intentional to go and get complementary pieces. And I don't mean oh, here's a compliment. You look nice in your dress today. I mean compliment as the pieces fit together like a husband and wife, how they complement each other well. That's what this team does. It's not, you know that old basketball phrase of, hey, I'm not looking for the 5 best players. I'm looking for the best 5, the best group of 5. Same thing with a baseball team. I need the best 9 for football, the best 11. That's what Carolina is getting figured out is how do each of us in our unique specialized way make this team better because of what I do as I've been asked to on my role on this team. That is what's doing it. So it's not just that Carolina has role definition, it's that the players are accepting of those roles and that they are all team first guys. So they are glad to do so. You need me to go out and get rebounds? Cool. I'll do that. You need me to set screens? I'm in, whatever it is. And one thing I've even just started to think about that, I really hadn't thought about this until the past day or two. But I've talked a lot about how what made Carolina so special down the stretch of the year they made it to the national championship in Coach Davis's first year, in large part was because Brady Manek just brought something to that team that they didn't have in terms of leadership acumen, holding guys accountable, and he got on fire from deep, things like that. Is Harrison Ingram this year's Brady Manek? He's a little bit wild. He's a little bit crazy, likes to have some fun. You don't know what to expect from him all the time. And he's not doing it in the exact same way as Brady. It's not like Harrison's stepping out and just drilling 3 after 3 after 3. But what he's leaned into with rebounding lately and affecting the game in a multitude of ways, being the guy to get in there, hold people accountable, but back up his teammates. I mean, it's just in the same way that Brady's skill set and personality did, what Harrison does is setting this team apart. What do you think about that? You agree with that? Is Harrison Ingram this year's Brady Manek? And with all of this, I want to continue to give Coach Davis credit. General Nicholas in the Locked On Tar Heels Discord asked this. He said, I'm so pleased Hubert is using his bench. My question is it out of pressure or is it because the bench is actually better? That's a great question, General Nicholas. Here's my answer. I think Hubert Davis is impervious to the pressure. He doesn't care. He's going to play what he's going to play. We've seen that the past 2 years. I don't think it's pressure at all. I think it's that he trusts the bench and they have proven themselves to be players who can not only just kind of hold the line, but build out the lead even more so. I think it's strictly out of being better because he just doesn't care about the pressure. I don't get the Coach Davis. This is a better bench. It's a deeper bench. Another part of this role definition is it's leading, as guys lean into what they're being asked to do, it's leading to offensive balance. I talked about this in the live post game, but for the 3rd straight game now, nobody scored 20 points, but yet all 5 starters had 8 or more points and 4 bench players had at least 2 points. You're getting contributions from all over the map. And that is better for a basketball team because it's more difficult to guard than if just one or two guys are scoring all the points. This team is very difficult to guard. There's a couple questions in the live reaction chat that people got in that I wasn't able to answer. I'm going to answer a couple of those later, but another one now. This came from James Sharp, who said this: Seth Trimble has really blossomed since last year. Do you think he'll gain even more minutes or maybe even start? And this is another part of role definition is Seth, man, has really carved out a great role for himself, knows what it is. Sometimes it's going to be specific minutes that he's getting. Sometimes it's like Cadeau is having some sort, just some freshman moments. And so Trimble will come in, spell him for a bit. Or sometimes it's a small ball lineup. Sometimes it's just, dude, we need you to go out there and lock this dude down and then lead the break and just make athletic plays at the rim, whatever it is. So, James, to answer your questions, do you think he'll gain even more minutes? Yes. I think it'll change from game to game, but I think we're going to see Seth in that 15 to 20 range, game in and game out. Like, he has earned that and he deserves it. In terms of starting, I'll say no to that one. I mean, if there's an injury or something, knock on wood, yes, I think he would insert into the starting lineup if it's one of the guards. But you're not taking out RJ. You're not taking out Cormac Ryan. And so the only logical place then would be Elliot. And just because of what Elliot's unique skill set is, he's so quick with the ball, similar to Seth, but he's got this different level vision and does other things. So I don't think we'll see Seth start, but yes, on the more minutes. And man, I already mentioned Jalen Withers, but I mean, 3 blocks. Like, there's just something unique that he's done each of the last couple games to make it good. And think about, if this team didn't have role definition, are they able to sustain their lead and hold the tide while Armando Bacot's sitting on the bench in foul trouble and they're trying to figure out what to do with DJ Burns? Not a chance. So how many times have I said now in the past couple of weeks, right? You all know this. This team is learning how to play and to win in a multitude of ways. And you know what? I'm now starting to think and realize and understand that that's precisely because this team knows their roles and they're all in on it. Role definition is winning the day for Carolina. I love to see it. All right, coming up next, our Four Corners recap. We had several things we were looking at in the Four Corners preview. Could Carolina win a turnover battle against a team that was hell-bent on winning the turnover battle? How could Carolina's defense hold up? We're going to answer all those questions in just a second. Right after I tell you that this episode of Locked on Tar Heels is brought to you by Gametime. One of your New Year's resolutions should be to go check out all the events in the area around you, like sporting events, theater, comedy shows, whatever it is. And thankfully, to help you do that, there's this app called Gametime, the fast and easy way to help you get last-minute ticket deals for all of those types of events around you. They've got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and they've got a best price guarantee. So with all of that, Gametime has exactly what you need. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Thankfully, Gametime has you covered. They've got deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, and even after it gets going. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download their app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Terms apply. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, we're rolling on today's episode of Locked on Tar Heels, where we're recapping Carolina's big win over NC State on the road on Wednesday night. And so what we want to do now is move into our Four Corners recap, where we look at several specific things from this game. So to that end, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see I've now pulled up the box score so that you can follow along with that. And we'll also have our shady stat of the game. So first thing, number one in the Four Corners recap is turnovers. NC State's goal, or one of their main goals anyway, is that they don't want to turn the ball over and they want to make you turn over the ball. Interestingly, in this game, North Carolina obliged with 7 turnovers in the first half. That, they've had games with that many this year. And meanwhile, State had just 4 turnovers in that first 20 minutes. The good news was that NC State only scored 5 points off those turnovers, and Carolina got 2 off of NC State. So the Tar Heels were able to keep that close, but that's not always sustainable. But the second half, is where Carolina really was able to do some work. Carolina had 12 total turnovers in this game, meaning 5 of them were in the second half. However, here's how it played out. Carolina had this game wrapped up with about 4 minutes to go. And so 2 of the 5 turnovers were in the final 2 minutes of the game. Both shot clock violations as Carolina's just melting time off the clock because they've got basically an insurmountable lead at that point. So that leaves just 3 turnovers in the portion of the second half that mattered. Interestingly enough, they all came in the first 10 minutes of that second half. And that 15-2 run, that decisive run that put Carolina in lead for good, double-digit lead, and wrecked NC State's night, it came just in the minute or two after Carolina's third of those important turnovers. And then they never had another one until those 2 right at the end of the game. So it's wild what happens when you hold on to the ball and have more possessions. Carolina was able to get more efficiency, keep stopping NC State on the other end, and keep on trucking. So as Carolina settled in, they didn't win the turnover battle in this game. The NC State had 10, Carolina had 12. But Carolina was not hurt by those 7 in the first half too much anyway. And then by the ones in the second half, as soon as they they turned off that sieve, the faucet stopped leaking, Carolina went on their run. It matters. Number 2 in our 4 corners recap. In our 4 corners preview, one of the things we said was that defense and rebounding were critical to keep going. Carolina was figuring out both over the course of the last 3, 4, 5 games, and it needed to be a thing again, especially on the road where defense matters in a big way. Well, how about this? Unfortunately, this game at NC State was the first time all season that Carolina was under 1 point per possession on offense. They were at 0.985, so just slightly underneath it. However, the Tar Heels held NC State to 0.754 in their own points per possession. That's Carolina's best defensive PPP of the season. The previous high was at UC Riverside. So yeah, the defense was doing work. They held NC State to 26.9% shooting from the field and 9.5% from the 3-point line. The 3-point defense has been insane in this 3-game road stretch, holding the 3 opponents to a combined 8 of 68 from 3. That's 11.8%. The KenPom side of things, Carolina's ranked 10th now, and I bring this up because the defensive efficiency has now eclipsed the offensive efficiency. Offense is 15, the defense is 8. I told you this team could be legit on defense, and it could be their calling card and what they hang their hat on, so that when the offense isn't right, it won't matter because they're getting stops on the other end. By the way, here's just some of the straight numbers. You probably already know these if you've been following along, but points. Carolina has held 5 straight opponents under 70. 3 straight opponents now, all on the road, by the way, all ACC opponents under 60. Under 60, 3 straight games, ACC road opponents. Oh, and by the way, the rebounding that we mentioned, yeah, Carolina won that again, 49-42, a +7 margin. So since being out rebounded by UConn, Kentucky, and Oklahoma by 10, 10, and 7, Carolina now has 4 straight games of being +21, +10, +11, and now +7. That's Charleston Southern, whatever, fine. But then Pitt, Clemson, and NC State all on the road. Carolina's getting this rebounding figured out. Number 3 in our 4 corners recap, I need to talk about our man, Elliot Cadeau. As a freshman, especially as you get into ACC play, man, things are hard. And one of the big questions that came up to me multiple times this week were people saying, how do you think Elliot's going to handle this, the most hostile road environment he's seen? And my answer was simple. Elliot is going to have veterans all around him that can help settle him, can help ease any oh my gosh, what is happening? They're all yelling at me and saying mean things and whatever. And if he has struggle moments, yeah, sometimes it's you talk to him, sometimes you get somebody else in the game. For example, after a couple freshman moments early in the second half of this game, Coach Davis let Elliot get a breather, kind of catch the lay of the land. Seth Trimble comes in, provides several great minutes there. And then Elliot comes back in, settles in, and provides a great rest of the game. In fact, He went out at 15:50, came back at 12:06, and Elliot Cadeau played the entirety of that final 12 minutes. You love to see that. I say that, except for when the starters all checked out because the lead got so big. So the last, he was out the last minute or whatever it was. So Elliot, 32 minutes, 11 points, 6 assists, 2 turnover, 1 block, 1 steal. Man, you will take that from Elliot Cadeau every day of the week. My favorite things that he was doing is you see him starting to pick a few more slots now to call his own number in terms of getting to the rim and finishing. He's learned all that Cole Anthony tutelage over the summer about learning when to downshift, when to rev up. Man, he's starting to use those speed differences well. He's getting to the rim and doing it. But the play of the game came from Elliot Cadeau. There's 6:10 left in the game. Carolina is on that decisive run. At this point, they're up 59-48. Armando Bacot comes out front, like just top of the key, to set a screen for Elliot. Elliot starts to use it, reverses ball behind his back to go back the other way to the left side. DJ Burns is playing some drop coverage at this point. So Cadeau gets away from Bacot's screen. Casey Morsell is just left in the dust out hanging out with Armando Bacot. So he's playing catch up. So that forces DJ Burns to kind of pay his attention to Cadeau, forgetting that Armando's back behind him, just making a beeline to the front of the rim. Meanwhile, the NC State help defense from the corner doesn't shift over. So this is great for Carolina. So Cadeau comes around, has the ball in his left. He's not around DJ Burns. He's kind of still behind him. But somehow in one swift motion, Cadeau shifts the ball from his left to his right hand, spins it up ahead of Burns, just leading Armando like a quarterback lead, like throwing a wide receiver open, basically. Mondo catches this pass, dunks it. It's beautiful and insane. I cannot for the life of me figure out how Elliot saw that, got the geometry right, got the physics of the play right, and got it around Burns just in the spot where Mondo could catch it in rhythm. Boom for the dunk. I mean, it was bonkers. I tweeted the video of it. Go watch it if you haven't seen it yet. I mean, it is silly, this play. All right. And the fourth point in our Four Corners recap is this Armando Bacot DJ Burns matchup that we were all waiting on. It's funny because if you just watch the first half of this game, you would think, oh, DJ Burns won this battle, this individual one-on-one battle going away. But if you watch the entirety of the game, DJ Burns' second half pretty much mirrored Armando's first half. And so they wound up basically doing the same thing when all was said and done. Their stat line is very, very similar. And they essentially, therefore, cancel each other out. Now, one of the questions that had been asked to me in this matchup was, hey, do you think Carolina is going to throw multiple defenders at DJ Burns to try to mess with him? And my answer to that was no. If Armando Bacot can handle this one-on-one, that's ideal, because what Burns is a great passer, can kick out to shooters and get some good looks. That happened, if I recall, just once in the game, and it resulted in one of NC State's 2 threes that they made. But Armando, just to be honest, really couldn't handle Burns one-on-one. He even talked about it after the game. He's like, dude, he got bigger and I'm like smaller after losing my weight. And that kind of led to Carolina having to try some things. So as Bacot was out, Washington's in doing his best. Carolina starts doubling. Eventually, when Washington gets his third foul, they go even smaller, and Jalen Withers was guarding Burns at that point. But Carolina's doubling helped. Even when Bacot eventually came back in, Carolina kept doubling. And it led NC State and DJ Burns in particular to make a couple bad decisions leading to turnovers. And so all in all, I think, again, based on just straight stats, Burns wins the matchup ever so slightly. But all in all, it's a push to me because Armando was able to do more in the second half, and Carolina as a team defense was able to neutralize DJ Burns. He's a big boy, though. I'd tell you what, folks. Now, shady stat of the game. Let me give it to you. It's pretty simple and easy. 19 rebounds for Harrison Ingram. Are you kidding me with this? This man is bonkers. And it's even more crazy. Like 2 games ago, he had 15 at Pitt. That was a career high. Before that, he had never recorded more than 11 rebounds in a game. Did that once, had 10 multiple times at Stanford. So you go from never having more than 11 to 15 and now 19. And poor Harrison had 2 free throws like right at the end of the game just needed one of them to get to a double-double. That would have been his 10th point and missed them both. We can laugh about it because the margin was so big. I was also kind of hoping for one more rebound so we could get a 10 and 20 game. How wild would that be? But I'm not going to put it past him at this point. So Harrison Ingram, 38 rebounds in the past 3 games. That's 12.7 average in those 3 games. He had 6 against Florida State. So in the 4 ACC games, Harrison Ingram's averaging 11 rebounds per game. That's phenomenal. Okay, well, we got a couple more odds and ends to talk about. Where are we at? I want to go all in on the refs for that bogus F1 call. I want to go in on the refs for not keeping Kevin Keatts off the court. We'll get to all of that in just a second. Right after I tell you that this episode of Locked On Tar Heels is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL regular season just wrapped up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is really easy to use, and there's so many different ways to bet, like same-game parlays, or use the brand new Explore tab to find all sorts of bets. Hey, let me update you on these ACC regular season odds again, because it's grown even more in Carolina's favor. They are now at -105 to win the ACC, Duke at +140, Wake at +1400, and it goes on and longer odds from there for Miami, Clemson, and Virginia. Whoo, FanDuel thinks Carolina's about to win this thing. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, let's talk about this flagrant one that was called on Armando Bacot. It was so soft. It was so weak. Several asked in the live reaction show, hey, was that a flop by, I think it was Middlebrooks? Is that who it was? I think so, but regardless of that, I'm not frustrated with him. Sure, do your, it's like Hunter Dickinson for Kansas the other day over the weekend when they should have lost to TCU. Thankfully, they got their karma and they lost on Wednesday night. But I'm not mad at him for flopping. I'm mad at the refs for buying it, for being duped. And here's the other issue. Because a common foul was not called on Armando in real time, which that's what I thought the call should have been. Had they seen it, it should have been a foul on Armando, sure. But they didn't call it, so it's not. And thankfully, they let the play go on and Carolina scored. You get that. And then they stop playing, go to the monitors to look to see if it's flagrant. And this is where I take issue. That was not a flagrant 1 foul. There was no reason that should have been called as such. To me, because here's how the rule book lays things out. If you didn't call a common foul in real time, you can't then go to the monitor, see a foul, and call it. But what you can do is go to the monitor and then assess a flagrant foul. And that's what they did. So to me, they didn't have a flagrant foul, but they realized they should have called a common foul. And so that was like their way of making up for it. But what it did was it stopped some great momentum. I think Carolina had just pushed the lead out to 5. They had some driving going, but instead, State gets 2 free throws and the ball. And if I remember correctly, made 1 of 2 at the free throw line and scored on that possession they had. Thankfully, Carolina wins the game and it doesn't hurt. But that's so bogus. And the problem is that flagrant fouls also count as personal fouls. So Mondo has 2. He has to sit the final 5:48 or whatever it was. And then that means that foul he picked up early in the second half was foul number 3 when it should have been foul number 2. That is just unacceptable from the refs for me. The other thing that there are several things with the refs in this game, but Kevin Keatts, my word, get off the court. That play we talked about where Armando comes back in transition when DJ Burns is all moaning and groaning because he missed that layup. Kevin Keats was from me to this water bottle that I'm holding away from RJ. All RJ had to do was kind of swerve over and run into Kevin Keats, and that's a technical foul. I would have loved that. But thankfully, RJ got a 3 in transition. That's probably worth more anyway. But that was not the only time Keats was out on the court. I mean, he must think he's the king of this court. And until the referees stop him and say, you got to go back, sir, I guess I can't blame him. So again, this is on the refs. Keep the man off the court. He's going to interfere with the play. It's going to happen. Also, he had a post-game quote that rankled me. He said this: "It's a make or miss game," meaning shots. "I don't think it's anything that UNC did. We just didn't make shots." Come on, man. That's just naive of you to say, Kevin Keats. Sure, yes, there were some shots that NC State, had good looks at and could have made. But you're telling me that's nothing about North Carolina? Have you seen their defensive numbers lately? You're telling me that's all coincidence and there's nothing the Tar Heels are doing to affect any of these teams, including your own? I've got an idea for you, Kevin Keats, who is now 3-10 against Carolina in his career at NC State. How about instead of worrying about, throwing shots at Carolina, you worry more about winning against Carolina, and then maybe you can say something and talk. But in the meanwhile, until you do, maybe give the Tar Heels a little credit for slowing down your team. Thank you very much for coming to my TED Talk. So where are we at going forward? Carolina is now alone atop the ACC at 4-0. There are 4 teams right behind Carolina with 1 loss, but 2 of those 4 teams, their lone loss is to the Tar Heels. So we'll take that. That's NC State and Florida State. Hubert Davis, we just talked about Kevin Keats being 3-10 against Carolina. Hubert Davis is now 4-1 against NC State. This was the Tar Heels' 3rd straight road game. You've heard me talk about it, but it's also their 3rd straight quad 1 game. That means it's their 3rd straight quad 1 win. When you wake up and are listening to this on Thursday morning, Carolina will now have 5 quad 1 wins on the season. That's tied with Arizona for 2nd in the nation, behind only Purdue, who has 6. Oh, by the way, I just mentioned Kansas losing. Everyone else around Carolina is doing that too. And so you just got to keep winning. That's all you got to do. And good things are going to keep coming. So that now is immediately Syracuse on Saturday, right? So we'll look forward to that. All right, folks, great day to be a Tar Heel. Man, what a win. What a stretch the Tar Heels are on. Y'all, I told you the other day, enjoy this ride because it's a blast and you don't know when it may end. I'm just telling you, keep enjoying the ride. All right. If you haven't joined the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, we'd love to have you in there. The link is in the show notes. You can also email us, lockedontarheels@gmail.com. As I said earlier, we're like 50, just shy of 50 subscribers away from 7,000 on YouTube. If you're not subscribed, or people that aren't subscribed, man, it'd mean a lot if you could get in on that action. It'd be fun. Smash the like button so we know you're here. We'd also love it if you would rate and review the show 5 stars. Talk about why you love Locked On Tar Heels. I said it a second ago. I'll say it again. It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll talk to you again tomorrow to get ready for Syracuse. Coach Rob will be with me for that one. Cannot wait. But until then, peace.